We are heading out to a trap full of pigs. I think we've got 20. I think I counted 20 in there. It's hard when they're all moving around and not all of them are in one frame.
For years, wild hogs were winning. They tore through crops, outsmarted hunters, and multiplied faster than anyone could control. It was a silent invasion costing Texas hundreds of millions every year.
How destructive are they? What are they capable of?
They're very destructive. If I looked at it on average, I could lose up to 10% of my grain crops.
But then a handful of farmers changed everything. They stopped relying on old hunting tactics and built a smarter, data-driven trap system that could wipe out entire sounders in a single move. What happened next shocked the state, and the footage proves it. This is how Texas finally turned a losing war into a strategic victory. The birth of America's wild hog crisis. The story of America's wild boar disaster began with a simple mistake. In the year 1539, Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto arrived on the coast of Florida with a small herd of domestic pigs. They were meant to be a walking food supply for his expedition. No one imagined what would happen when several slipped into the forests and disappeared. Once free, those pigs adapted with astonishing speed. They survived storms, found food in wetlands and hardwood forests, and reproduced rapidly. These escapees became the first wild swine populations in North America. They lived quietly for generations, staying near rivers, marshes, and wooded areas. Occasionally, they raided fields, but for the most part, they went unnoticed. If the story had ended there, the United States would never have faced the crisis it faces today. But history took a sharp turn. In the early 1900s, wealthy landowners and private hunting clubs imported large Eurasian wild boars from Europe and Asia. These animals were nothing like the barnyard pigs that De Soto carried. They were powerful, fast, heavily muscled, and aggressive, with tusks capable of ripping apart roots, brush, and anything in their path. Some escaped. Others were intentionally released for sport. When these European boars encountered the established feral pigs, the two formed a hybrid. The result was a new animal, wild hogs that combined the size and toughness of the Eurasian boar with the intelligence and explosive reproduction rate of the domestic pig. It was stronger, smarter, and capable of thriving in almost any environment. By the early 1980s, the United States counted roughly 2.4 million wild hogs in 18 states. By the year 2016, that number had reached nearly 7 million in 35 states. Scientists were stunned. This was not gradual expansion, it was a biological takeover. Texas became the epicenter of the invasion. The state offered everything the hybrid hogs needed to flourish. The pine forests of East Texas provided cover and soft soil packed with roots and tubers. Central Texas offered rolling hills and dense brush. South Texas supplied thorny thickets where hogs could vanish. The plains of the Panhandle offered endless crops for nighttime feeding. Human activity made things even easier. Ranchers built water tanks for cattle, which hogs claimed year-round. Farmers planted corn, peanuts, soybeans, and wheat, all prime hog foods. Wildlife managers improved habitat for deer, and hogs took advantage of every improvement. Texas did not mean to create the perfect wild hog habitat, yet everything aligned in the animal's favor. Predators offered little resistance. Coyotes rarely approached adult hogs. Bobcats were too small. Black bears were too few. Even mountain lions avoided fully grown boars whenever possible. With almost no natural enemies, the population grew unchecked. Then came the advantage that sealed Texas's fate. Wild hogs reproduce at a speed almost unmatched among large mammals. A female can breed at 6 months of age. She carries her young for only about 115 days. In a food-rich environment, she can give birth twice each year, often producing 10 or more piglets at a time. Those piglets reach breeding age within the span of a single year. A population removed from a piece of land can replace itself in as little as 18 months. Removing a few hogs each season does nothing. Removal has to be constant, coordinated, and massive, or the population rebounds immediately. By the time the scale of the invasion became undeniable, Texas was facing the worst wild hog problem in the nation. A few pigs brought to the continent centuries earlier had multiplied into millions. They destroyed farmland, polluted water, tore apart wildlife habitat, damaged infrastructure, and expanded into new counties every year. This was no longer an inconvenience. It had become a statewide crisis, and as the numbers continued to rise, Texans realized they were at the beginning of a fight that would cost billions of dollars and reshape the future of agriculture. The hidden price of the hog crisis. Texas did not declare war on wild hogs because they were frightening or disruptive. Texas declared war because these animals created an economic and environmental catastrophe that no farmer, rancher, or wildlife manager could ignore. Every single year, wild hogs inflict more than $118 million in damage across Texas, and the cost rises steadily as the population expands. This is not a distant threat or a slow-moving problem. It is an active crisis that continues day and night. What makes the situation extraordinary is the speed and scale of destruction. A single hog can cause roughly $1,000 in damage in only one night. That cost includes broken fences, shredded irrigation lines, torn soil, and destroyed crops. But the true danger comes from sounders, family groups of 20 or more hogs moving together like a coordinated demolition team. Researchers estimate that one hog can tear apart roughly 6 square feet of land every minute. Multiply that by an entire sounder, and acres can be ruined before sunrise. They flatten crops as easily as a machine, bending stalks, snapping pipes, ripping out soil, and pushing through fences with almost no resistance. But physical destruction is only the beginning. 95% of hog damage comes not from eating crops, but from uprooting, trampling, and tearing through everything in their path. Farmers often describe the aftermath as looking less like animal activity and more like the wake of a tornado. One night of rooting can erase a season of labor, investment, and planning. Some losses never heal. Soil that took decades to establish can be destroyed in hours. Once the layers are disturbed, nutrients mix improperly, native plants die, and invasive weeds spread rapidly. Even replanting or rewiring irrigation cannot restore the long-term stability of the land. Hogs reshape the environment itself, and the impact goes far beyond farmland. Their rooting accelerates erosion. Creek banks collapse, soft soil breaks apart, and rain washes the loosened earth downstream. Valleys fill with sand, hills lose their top layers, and forests that once held firm begin to weaken. This damage affects not only present-day landowners, but the generations who will inherit the depleted soil. Water systems suffer as well. When hogs wallow in shallow ponds or root along wetlands, they churn mud, bacteria, and nutrient-rich sediment into the water. Streams turn cloudy, oxygen levels fall, and fish suffocate. Livestock become vulnerable to disease. Entire aquatic ecosystems drift toward collapse. Wildlife faces similar consequences. Ground-nesting birds, including quail, prairie chickens, doves, and wild turkeys, lose their eggs before they hatch. Fawns hidden in tall grass during spring are easy for hogs to find. Reptiles, amphibians, and the nests of threatened species are consumed before biologists can protect them. Every creek, forest, field, and grassland touched by hogs is altered in ways that ripple outward for years. Even areas that look undisturbed often bear hidden scars. Rooted patches concealed beneath grass, wallows dug into riverbanks, trees marked where hogs scraped mud and hair. The signs are everywhere. The damage is continuous. And this is why farmers realized something essential. Stopping the invasion meant more than repairing what hogs destroyed. It meant preventing the destruction before it happened. But before Texas ever turned to the genius trap strategy, it tried other methods. When every old method failed. At first glance, Texas appeared to have the perfect strategy for controlling wild hogs. The laws were designed for maximum pressure, maximum flexibility, and maximum participation from hunters across the state. There were no closed seasons. There were no limits on how many animals could be taken. A hunting license was not required on private land. And virtually every method imaginable was legal. Hunters used rifles, shotguns, handguns, bows, and crossbows. Landowners set out bait stations, built blinds, and hunted over feeders. Dog teams tracked hogs through thickets. Some operations even used helicopters to sweep across large ranches. On paper, it looked like an unbeatable system. Unlimited access, unlimited firepower, unlimited opportunity. Yet the wild hog population did not decline. It accelerated. The failure did not come from a lack of effort. It came from a misunderstanding of how wild hog populations function and how hunters unintentionally worked against the very objective they were trying to achieve. Most recreational hunters prefer large trophy boars, the big males with long tusks and heavy muscle. These are the animals seen in photos, mounted on walls, and shared among hunting circles. But removing males has almost no effect on population growth. A single male can breed with many females, and females are the true engine of the invasion. Selective hunting meant that the one group responsible for nearly all reproduction, the females and younger hogs, was often left untouched. While hunters celebrated removing a large boar, the sounder behind him continued producing 2 litters each year, often with 6 to 12 piglets at a time. That pattern repeated across the state. The result was predictable. The population continued to rise. Texas was not the only state to learn this the hard way. Tennessee implemented an aggressive hunting program in the late 1990s with the hope that more hunters would mean fewer hogs. Instead, the opposite occurred. Wild hogs spread from 6 counties to 70 in a little more than 1 decade. California saw the same pattern. When wild hogs were officially designated as game animals in the 1950s, they were limited to a handful of coastal counties. By the end of the century, they had spread to 56 of the state's 58 counties. The expansion was not caused by natural migration alone. Illegal transportation played a major role. Some individuals secretly trapped and moved hogs to new areas to create hunting opportunities or supply private preserves. Each relocated group created a fresh breeding nucleus, spreading the invasion faster than nature ever could. Even well-meaning bounty programs failed. Local governments offered payments for every hog killed, hoping money would motivate more participation. Instead, the programs encouraged fraud and misuse. Some people transported hogs across county lines to collect bonuses. Others kept small breeding populations to guarantee future income. And supplemental feeding intended to attract hogs for removal increased their reproductive rates instead. Traditional box traps created another serious problem. These small cages caught 1 or 2 hogs at a time, but they never captured entire sounders. As soon as a few hogs were caught, the rest learned to avoid traps entirely. They remembered the scent, the shape, and the disturbance. Trap shyness became widespread, making all future trapping far less effective. By the time Texas recognized these patterns, one conclusion had become unavoidable. The wild hog crisis was not a hunting issue, it was a strategy issue. Every conventional method attacked the problem from the wrong angle. The state could not shoot or trap its way out of the invasion using the same tools that had already failed. That realization led farmers, wildlife managers, and landowners to ask a question that changed everything. What if hog control required the same planning, coordination, and intelligence used in military operations? That question became the foundation of the next chapter, where Texas stopped reacting and started strategizing. The Intelligence Revolution. After years of frustration, forward-thinking farmers stopped treating wild hog control as a sport and began treating it as an intelligence mission built on strategy, pattern analysis, and coordinated execution. Understanding the enemy became the foundation of the revolution. Wild hogs are not chaotic destroyers acting on instinct. They are highly intelligent animals with complex social systems. They organize themselves into family units known as sounders, usually led by an experienced matriarch. Within these groups, younger animals learn where to feed, how to avoid danger, and which threats to ignore. Males drift in and out seasonally, but the females hold the group together and pass survival tactics down the line. They move mostly at night or during the dim hours of dawn and dusk. Their eyesight is limited, but their senses of smell and hearing are exceptional. often alerting them to danger long before a human can get within range. Hogs remember specific threats, avoid areas where members have been injured, and change their routes quickly when pressured. To defeat an animal, this adaptive brute force would never be enough. The solution had to be smarter. The first real innovation was the shift to large corral traps. Small box traps, once common across Texas, caught only 1 or 2 animals at a time and taught the rest of the group to avoid anything that resembled metal or carried the scent of humans. Corral traps changed the rules. Built as wide circular enclosures, they were designed to capture entire sounders instead of isolated individuals. A single successful operation could remove an entire destructive unit from the land. Studies soon confirmed what farmers saw firsthand. Corral traps captured several times more hogs per hour of labor than the old box traps. More importantly, they prevented the rise of trap-shy survivors who would go on to instruct future generations. By removing whole sounders at once, farmers broke the cycle of learned avoidance that had made hog control nearly impossible. But the real transformation came when technology entered the picture. Cellular trail cameras, originally used by deer hunters, became indispensable tools in hog management. These cameras sent real-time photos and videos straight to a farmer's phone, allowing them to watch trap sites around the clock without stepping foot outside. With this constant stream of intelligence, farmers learned when sounders approached, which direction they came from, how many hogs were present, and how long they stayed. Guesswork disappeared. Every decision became informed by actual data. This new visibility made the next innovation possible: remotely triggered trap gates. Instead of relying on tripwires that shut the gate when the first hog entered, farmers waited until the entire sounder walked inside. Only then did they close the trap with a simple command from their phone. No noise, no warning, no survivors left to learn from the mistake. For the first time, technology allowed farmers to execute complete sounder captures with precision timing. Control efforts began to look less like random attempts and more like coordinated military operations. The innovations did not stop at trapping. Because hogs are most active in darkness, farmers began adopting thermal imaging and night vision optics. These tools revealed entire groups glowing against the landscape, moving silently through fields and pastures. With thermal scopes, farmers could track hogs without alerting them, eliminating groups that previously slipped through the shadows unnoticed. It was a new era of control. Intelligence replaced assumptions. Surveillance replaced chance. Strategy replaced scattered effort. And as this new system took shape, Texas farmers discovered something even more powerful. When technology and planning worked together, they could finally predict the enemy's moves instead of reacting to them. The power of integration. The single greatest breakthrough in Texas did not come from traps, technology, or firepower alone. It came from understanding a simple truth. No individual method, no matter how advanced, could control wild hog populations by itself. The real genius was in integration, the creation of a unified system where intelligence, technology, and field tactics worked together as one coordinated strategy. Texas farmers learned that wild hog management had to function like an ongoing campaign rather than a series of isolated attempts. Success came only when every tool, every action, and every decision supported the next. What emerged was a 4-phase system that transformed scattered efforts into a highly organized, adaptable control network. The first phase is intelligence gathering. Before any traps are set or any shots are fired, farmers spend 1 to 2 full weeks collecting data. Cellular trail cameras are placed in areas showing fresh damage, rooting, tracks, or wallows. For days at a time, the land is observed without human interference. Farmers map sounder movements, identify group sizes, track feeding schedules, and study how predictable each group is. They also note which sounders show signs of avoiding traps from previous attempts. In some cases, especially large groups are identified early so that aerial teams can be prepared later. This intelligence phase is essential. Without it, control efforts become guesswork. With it, every move is targeted and efficient. Phase 2 is strategic trap deployment. Using the information gathered earlier, farmers place large corral traps directly in the paths that sounders use most often. Pre-baiting begins, sometimes lasting several weeks. Food is spread inside and around the trap without activating any trigger. The goal is to remove every reason for suspicion. Over time, The sounder becomes comfortable entering and exiting the enclosure freely. Remote cameras track every moment so farmers can watch entire family groups moving with complete confidence. Only when the full sounder enters together does the farmer close the gate with a single command from a phone. The entire group is captured, not just a few members. This prevents survivors from learning to avoid traps and passing those lessons to future generations. Phase 3 is coordinated multi-method elimination. This is where true integration becomes clear. Different landscapes require different tactics, and the most successful operations use several methods at the same time. In open pastures and large agricultural fields, professional aerial teams remove high-density groups quickly, covering thousands of acres in one operation. In crop zones with heavy nighttime feeding, thermal-equipped ground teams eliminate sounders before they cause extensive damage. In thick brush or broken terrain where traps and aerial methods are less effective, specially trained dog teams pursue individual hogs that have learned to avoid other control systems. Each method covers the weaknesses of the others. Together, they create pressure across every landscape type, limiting escape routes and reducing overall population much faster than any single approach could. The final phase is continuous prevention. Even after a major reduction, the system never turns off. Cellular cameras remain active every hour of every day. When a new sounder arrives, it is detected immediately, and the response begins within days. Farms that operate this way prevent new breeding groups from establishing permanent territories. Cooperation across property lines amplifies this effect. Neighboring landowners share photos, movement patterns, and warnings about trap-shy groups. Informal communication networks form naturally, allowing entire regions to coordinate captures rather than forcing each landowner to fight alone. This regional approach reduces the chance of hogs simply shifting from one property to the next. Texas law allows captured hogs to be sold to approved holding facilities, creating a modest offset to operational costs. These facilities follow the same federal standards used for domestic livestock and supply meat to processors such as Southern Wild Game. The revenue is small compared to the cost of control efforts, but it transforms a destructive pest into a limited economic return rather than a total loss. The results speak for themselves. Properties that follow full integration often achieve population reductions of 50 to 60% every year. Some landowners report near complete removal of local sounders, with only occasional new hogs appearing from neighboring areas. Damaged fields recover. Water systems stabilize. Insurance claims drop dramatically. The level of sophistication rivals professional wildlife management programs. Texas farmers using smartphones, thermal imaging, coordinated tactics, and shared intelligence have become strategic managers rather than reactive hunters. But even with such success, the system faces challenges that threaten long-term progress. The next chapter reveals the obstacles that still stand in the way and the weaknesses that could undo years of hard-earned gains. Reality and a measured hope. Complete removal of wild hogs from Texas is not realistic under today's laws, resources, or ecological conditions. The truth is straightforward. Wild hogs will not vanish from Texas in the foreseeable future. What the state can achieve, however, is long-term suppression. Scientists estimate that Texas must remove roughly 2/3 of its hog population every single year simply to prevent further growth. In other words, even holding the number steady requires reducing the population by nearly 70% annually. Anything less, and the curve begins rising again. But with this integrated system, some communities have achieved population reductions that were once thought impossible. This progress is real, but it is not universal. Large portions of Texas still depend on scattered traditional methods that offer far less impact. Regions where landowners work individually struggle to make measurable progress because wild hogs do not respect fences or property boundaries. A single unmanaged property can continually reseed an entire region. Several major barriers stand in the way of statewide success. The first is cost. A complete integrated system of cellular trail cameras, thermal optics, remote-triggered traps, professional aerial support, bait, and maintenance requires a significant initial investment. For many small or moderate-sized producers working on thin margins, Securing even $5,000 for equipment is unrealistic without grants, cost-sharing, or community support. Technology access is another challenge. In many rural regions of Texas, cellular coverage remains unreliable or entirely absent. Without consistent signal strength, the very tools that make the integrated system effective, such as remote cameras and smart traps, simply cannot function. Regional cooperation is equally difficult. Texas is overwhelmingly a private land state, and independence is woven deeply into the culture. Some landowners fully participate in coordinated control networks. Others do nothing at all, allowing hog populations to thrive unchecked on their land and spill into neighboring properties. A smaller group even maintains hog populations intentionally to support personal recreation or commercial hunts, undermining thousands of dollars of effort put in by surrounding producers. And then there is the problem no system can overcome alone: illegal transportation. Despite being prohibited by state law, the trapping and relocation of live wild hogs continues across Texas. Individuals, outfitters, and landowners seeking to establish new hunting populations still move hogs in secret, often under cover of darkness. Each release, even a single pregnant sow, can create an entirely new breeding population in an area that previously had control. Because Texas is vast, enforcement is difficult. Illegal relocation remains one of the most destructive forces working against the progress made by responsible landowners. Yet, even with these challenges, the advancements of the past decade are remarkable. The hope for Texas does not lie in wiping out wild hogs entirely. The hope lies in staying ahead of them year after year, generation after generation, and ensuring that the damage they cause never again reaches the catastrophic levels of the past. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more in-depth explorations of the world's most challenging ecological battles. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.